Hello everybody and welcome to No Game Schedule, the show where we talk about sports even when there are no games scheduled. Before we get started with this video, we would like to thank everybody for the massive support on our previous and first video, the Connor Bedard GOAT Blackhawk discussion. Got a lot of great comments, a lot of good constructive criticism as well. Got a little bit of criticism. You know who I'm talking about. You know who you are. I know where you live, but we want to thank everybody. I mean, obviously we're changing things up here, and so it's always risky to do something different, but to see a lot of people be really supportive of it is a great sign, especially on something we've worked really hard for the last couple years, and especially the last couple of months. So thank you for that, and on to today's video. And today we are talking about Klay Thompson being acquired by the Dallas Mavericks and asking the question, how key is Klay? Essentially, this came down to a 5-team trade between the Golden State Warriors, the Dallas Mavericks, the Charlotte Hornets, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Everybody just trading in old junk for new junk and old junk for new treasure and new treasure for old junk. It's a really weird analogy, but that's what happened. Looking at what the Dallas Mavericks lineup and team is going to look like here today, the roster as it's presently constructed. The starting lineup looks to be Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, and Derek Lively Jr. If you look at the bench, Jaden Hardy, Quentin Grimes, Dante Exum, Najee Marshall, AJ Lawson, Oliver Maxine Prosper, Maxi Kleba, Daniel Gafford, Dwight Powell, and Melvin Ajinka. This is not a great bench by any stretch of the imagination, I will say that, but is it good? Yes, absolutely. I think that their bench last season for the Dallas Mavericks was a little bit better. I think the Boston Celtics had the deepest bench overall, and I think the Mavericks were probably second to that. And that is more than likely why they were both in the finals. A lot of people think that it just matters on who your starting five is. It isn't. There's a reason there's 12, 15 roster spots on a team, because you need to fill those out as much as possible with guys who can help you. Because of this, because of the couple team trades and guys they just don't need anymore, didn't want, and unfortunately couldn't keep, the Dallas Mavericks lose Tim Hardaway Jr., which is an absolute plus for the Dallas Mavericks. Tim Hardaway Jr. theoretically is a really good basketball, not really good, theoretically is a good basketball player, but his decision making and his basketball IQ absolutely throw any chance he has of being considered a good player or a great player out of the window, and so he gets banished to Detroit like he deserves. Josh Green, who was a pretty good player for them off the bench previously, not only just this last season, but seasons prior. And so losing him a little bit, that's a sacrifice you're willing to make. And they also lose Derrick Jones Jr. He goes to the Clippers in free agency, I think 3 years, $30 million. That does hurt them just a little bit. Derrick Jones Jr. is a great player, and Derrick Jones Jr. going to the Mavericks and immediately going on a title run really goes to show you how bad the managerial and coaching side of the Chicago Bulls really is. But looking at the starting lineup here for the Dallas Mavericks, those 5 guys I just included, there's one thing I'm going to address right away. There's a lot of people who seem to think that Klay Thompson is going to struggle not playing with Steph Curry. I've seen this meme about 40 times already, where people say, oh, Klay Thompson, when he realizes that he's not going to get the ball as much playing with Luka and Kyrie as he does to Steph Curry. I don't know where people are getting that mindset from. If anything, Klay Thompson is going to get the ball more. If you look at the 2 primary ball handlers for the Golden State Warriors, this past season, it was mainly Steph Curry and Chris Paul. Steph Curry averaged 5.1 assists and Chris Paul averaged 6.8. Now that's on track for Chris Paul. Probably second to Magic Johnson. He's one of the greatest passers in NBA history. He's called the point god for a reason. Him going to San Antonio is a good move, by the way, not only for him but for San Antonio as a whole. The Frenchman, he needed someone who could actually play basketball, and Jeremy Sochan wasn't getting the job done. But if you look at Luka and Kyrie in their average standpoints, Luka Doncic nearly averaged a triple-double this last season. He had 9.8 assists on the season, and Kyrie Irving had 5.2. So if you just look at the 2 primary ball handlers, Luka and Kyrie move the ball a lot more than Curry and Paul do, and that is to Klay Thompson's advantage. There's 2 things that are going to occur because of this Klay Thompson deal. Now, if Klay Thompson is in the starting lineup, which for the amount of money you're giving him, he should be. That's the first thing a lot of people forget about. There's a business side to basketball as well. But one of 2 things is going to happen. Whether or not Luka or Kyrie has the ball coming up the court, it will more than likely be Luka. I think he holds, more than half the time he's the primary ball handler. A lot of teams, and you saw this in the playoffs previously, they send their two best guards at Kyrie and Luka. If you look at the finals, it was Derek White and Jrue Holiday. Jrue Holiday is the best defensive guard in the NBA, and Derek White really is not that far behind him. Jaylen Brown took some turns on him. Jason Tatum took some turns on him. Al Horford did a really good job, as old as he was, guarding those two guys. But mainly, you're going to send your best two defenders at Kyrie and Luka. If you think back to the Timberwolves series, they sent everyone at them. Do not mention they sent their best defender at Luka. All right, it didn't turn out the way they thought they would, but play the clip here, right here. Rudy Gobert, what an absolute joke. I have no idea how that guy won Defensive Player of the Year last year. I would have been better off giving it to Wembanyama. Man, he's bad. Look at the Phoenix Suns series, which they don't have any good defenders, period. That team is just strictly offense. But if you look at the Timberwolves team, who is, I think they were the best defense in the NBA last year, they were doubling Luka as much as they possibly could, and that led to Kyrie Irving being open a lot. So now what will happen with Klay Thompson is one of two things. Number one, if you double Luka or you double Kyrie, whoever has the ball, what that's going to allow for is there's going to be an open guy, and whether you kick it to Luka or you kick it to Klay, let's just say Luka takes the ball up for now. Klay and Kyrie are fantastic spot-up shooters, so you're now going to have to cover two guys else on the court. And so if you double team Luka Doncic, there's going to be someone open, and this starting lineup and some of the guys on this new Dallas Mavericks bench can prove they can get a bucket quickly off the pass. Number two, what's going to happen is you're just going to have to play one-on-one. And let me tell you something, you are not going to want to play one-on-one against Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. They'll kill you. Kyrie Irving is well known for what he can do in a one-on-one setting. We've seen it done numerous times. We've seen him do it to Klay Thompson numerous occasions. We've seen him do it to Kyrie numerous occasions. We've seen him do it to some of the best defenders in the league. And Luka is really good. He's still very young. I don't think people ever realize that. He started when he was 18 years old, and now he's played so many seasons in the NBA. People think he's, 30 years old. He isn't. He's 25. But Luka is also a great one-on-one player. Not as good as Kyrie Irving. I think one-on-one in just a standpoint of who can get a bucket, you go to Kyrie, but one-on-one and what Luka can do, including passing the ball out, Luka's really good. But the two of them in a one-on-one setting are going to torch you. And just because you have to worry about Klay Thompson on the perimeter, which is where he's going to be, I hope they just don't stick him in the corner, because Golden State started to do that a little bit. Get him some off-ball movement as well. Get him open would be great. Jason Kidd, which I'll come back to that in a minute. This will be his last attempt at head coaching. The defense is going to have to work overtime when Klay, Kyrie, and Luka are on the court. And they're still going to have to worry about the lob setting as well. The Mavericks really tried to reignite Lob City this past offseason. They really showed it, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. They kept Gafford. They keep Washington. They keep Derek Lively. They lose Derek Jones Jr., who's one of the best finishers at the rim in the NBA. It's unfortunate he's going to the Clippers, and they're not going to be anything this next season. But defenses are going to struggle against this new Dallas Mavericks, and so for that part, Klay Thompson is very key. Talking about Jason Kidd really quickly here for the Dallas Mavericks, I really believe that either this year, I think it would be this year because of the contracts and how much time you have on everybody. This might be Jason Kidd's last season with the Dallas Mavericks. You went to the finals last year and you lost, which I don't think anyone blames you for, as you went up against one of the most dominant teams in NBA history. I know people don't like that opinion because it was an easy playoff run, and as someone who liked watching the Celtics, I still can admit it was pretty easy due to injury. The East should have been a lot better than it was this past postseason. It just wasn't. But still, looking at what the Boston Celtics were able to do during the regular season and the postseason, they're dominant. So you lose to them in the finals. I don't think anyone blames you for that. There was a lot of things that just went wrong, Luka's health being one of them, and Kyrie Irving kind of going on vacation prior to losing. But if you have this roster now and the amount of money that Mark Cuban, or I think he sold a majority of his shares, whoever's in charge of the owner of the Mavericks now, whoever's in charge of that owner's box, if they don't like, the amount of money they're spending for the lack of return, Jason Kidd, you're more than likely going to be gone. And so that's just one thing to consider, is maybe, might not work out this season with coaching, but who knows what can happen after that. Vegas has the Dallas Mavericks at 11-1 odds to, I think, win the title this year. I don't know if it's win the title or just make it to the finals, but they were previously 11-1. They added Klay Thompson, and they are still 11-1, which for some reason people think is a bad sign. It isn't. As someone who opposes gambling, don't do it. I don't know why people don't realize that. Number one, Vegas is a scam, and they make these bets and these money lines to get you to add more money, and then when it doesn't hit, guess who keeps it? Them. It's a scam, people. I don't know what to tell you. You're delusional if you don't think that's how it is. Getting rid of having the guys you have and being 11-1, and then getting rid of them as there's tornado sirens going off. It's the middle of summer, the Midwest. But being at 11-1 odds prior to Klay Thompson and post Klay Thompson being signed is a good sign, because the guys you got rid of, specifically Tim Hardaway Jr., Derrick Jones Jr., Josh Green, right, who were good role players for, well, two of them were good role players for you. Getting rid of them and then adding a guy who has, in theory, been struggling previously is good, because I don't think anyone thinks that, because Klay Thompson is at the bedrock of his career. This is the worst Klay Thompson has ever been. And so if you're getting the worst version of Klay Thompson, which means the only place left he has to go is up, that's a really good sign if you're the Dallas Mavericks. Speaking of which, by the way, there's a point I want to quickly touch on here, and that's people saying that Klay Thompson is at the bedrock of his career. Yes, I understand that statistically speaking, he didn't have a great season previously, but just look at this and bear with me for 1 second. Previously this season, Klay Thompson averaged just under 18 points, 3.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists. Now, his numbers have been better in previous seasons. However, the thing that people really look at is his shooting percentage. 43% from the field and 38.7% from beyond the arc. Let me tell you something. There is a lot of guys who wish they could shoot 38% from beyond the arc. If I'm 5'10", if I could shoot 38% from beyond the arc, I would get an NBA contract. Klay Thompson at his worst is still better than most guys at their best. And the way the Warriors franchise has just gone the last couple years, you could talk about Jordan Poole, you could talk about Draymond Green, which is a weird thing that no one ever blames him. I've seen this. A lot of the blame went to Klay Thompson for going 0 for 10 in an elimination game. Number one, the Warriors weren't going to the finals anyway, so if anything, you just get a higher draft pick from losing. But everyone's kind of throwing the blame on Klay Thompson. I'll put it this way. Klay Thompson right now is the Dylan Brooks of the Golden State Warriors, how everyone is kind of using him as a scapegoat for the reason they lost. Nobody ever kind of points all the blame at Draymond Green after being suspended for half the season because he's a liability and a danger to players on the court. I don't care how good he is at defense if the best ability is availability and he's not available because he gets suspended. Nobody blames him for that. Nobody blames Steph Curry for not keeping him in check. No one blames Steve Kerr for not keeping him in check. Everyone just blames Klay Thompson for shooting just lower than what he normally has previously. I don't get it. It's kind of a bad way to end a guy's career with you after everything he did for you, just shipping him off to Dallas, which, let me tell you something. There was two options here, Klay Thompson going to the Lakers or going to Dallas, and everyone's wondering why Klay Thompson didn't pick the Lakers. Number one, would you? With everything they have going on, would you pick the Lakers? Or would you pick a team who just went to the NBA Finals and has two of the best backcourt players in the league? Just saying. Just saying. But this idea that Klay Thompson is going to be a massive detriment to the Dallas Mavericks, it just isn't true. I do think the 2023-24 season for Klay Thompson was his worst, but that's not saying it was terrible, right? There are definitely players who played a lot worse than Klay Thompson, not only last season, but in the history of the NBA. And so Klay Thompson, honestly, good for him. A change of scenery, a change of coaching, a team who actually wants him. To be honest, I don't even know if the Warriors wanted him at any point. Obviously, they didn't if they moved him. I know it was technically a sign and trade. I mean, he left in free agency. Realistically, he left in free agency. And so Klay Thompson moving on to greener pastures in Dallas hopefully is a good move for him. And so to wrap up the question of today's video, how key is Klay? He's very key. We already talked about the odds. We talked about spacing. We talked about coaching. This is a really good opportunity for Klay Thompson and for the Dallas Mavericks to return to the finals. Everybody said that their window was closed. And to be honest, I know a lot of people say that the West is really good right now. I don't think it's as good as people think. I do think that the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to return to the 1 seed after their young players gotten some playoff experience. They also just they stole Alex Caruso from the Chicago Bulls. They're definitely going to be number 1 again. The Timberwolves, I don't know what's going on with them. They're getting rid of some guys. They're making some signings and some acquisitions. I don't know how their team is going to look come the start of the season or even come the All-Star break, but the Timberwolves will definitely be back up there. I have zero faith in the Clippers. The Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't believe any of them make it out of the second round of the playoffs. I know you Lakers fans like to think that, oh my God, because you have LeBron and AD and you got all these supplementary pieces, your coaching and your organization is terrible, and it shows on the court. Phoenix Suns have absolutely zero defense and no bench players, and the LA Clippers are just old, and they're filled with a team of playoff chokers and Kawhi Leonard. And so right now, if you look at the other teams, I mean, you look at the Kings, they'll do whatever. The Grizzlies and the Pelicans, you hope, me personally, I hope they improve. I like to see those smaller town teams finally do something similar to what the Indiana Pacers did previously. And after the Grizzlies, I said the Grizzlies were going to have the best offseason because they're going to get a really low draft pick, or really high draft pick, and all of their players are returning. They get Zach Edey, which I have always said was going to be a top 10 pick, and I was proven right at the 9th spot, barely, but still right. So the Grizzlies will definitely be better than they were last season just because of players. The Pelicans signed DeJounte Murray. And so there's a lot of things happening in the West that are really it's going to be a different look this year. The big teams that everyone thinks is going to be on top, they won't. And I think this is a good time for the Mavericks to be a top 3 team in the West. And they have a good chance of returning to the finals. So yes, Klay is very key. But that will be the video for today. We thank you for watching and joining us here on No Game Schedule. Whether you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, we thank you, and we will see you next time. Podcast out.
Down by 2. There's the switch. Gobert's out there. Doncic maneuvers for the lead. Got it! Got it! What a shot! Dallas has taken the lead.